and welcome to another episode of Asperger's Answers. My name is Danny Rady. With me, the whole cacophony. I'm going to use a different word every time. You know how in the animal kingdom you have a gaggle of goats or whatever it is, and that's what we're going to do.
A cacophony of staff?
Yes.
I like that.
I do too.
And soon you're going to be a murder of staff.
It's very appropriate for Halloween.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Anyway, side tangent squirrel. My name is Danny Rady. With me, I have the wonderful Heather Patterson,
Hi there.
Mr. Frank, and our wonderful coach, Lauren. Lauren's the goat. Yes, okay.
She's the formal one.
Hi
Yeah.
again. Formerly known as Lauren.
Yes, yeah, the one formerly known as Lauren.
Lauren Schnipp. Now I'm just Lauren.
Yeah. So today we're talking about all sorts of interesting stuff related to getting out of defense mode, self-sabotage. We have a really, really good show. Let's jump right into the first question here. Carol is, and by the way, if you don't know how this works, we take questions from our AE Plus support group. So if you'd like to join AE Plus, then there's a link right above this video where you can do so. It is aspergerexperts.com/support. It's an amazing support group. We have a Minecraft server that Frank helps run. We have a Q&A calls that Lauren helps run. I help run the actual support group itself with 6,300 parents from all over the world now. And then Heather is sort of back-end support for the everything.
A little bit coaching.
And a little bit coaching.
Yeah.
So
All-purpose Heather.
yeah, the all-purpose Heather. It's very important. Now get out your all-purpose Heather.
Very conservative
cups.
staff titles here.
Yeah. People are like, and what is his title? Anyway.
Frank.
Yeah.
Chief Frank.
Yeah,
Chief Frank.
Quite literally, legally, you are the Chief Frank.
Right? Yeah.
So,
Quite legally.
yeah. Anyway, the first question from our AE Plus support group comes from Carol, who says, how do other parents of young adults on the spectrum handle seeing your child shun well-meaning advice and guidance and witness their child making bad choices and making situations so much harder for themselves? I know this isn't so different than for neurotypical young adult children, except for the consequences seem to be more severe. I'm paying for my daughter's community college classes, but she can't seem to turn around her light out until 3 a.m. and her English essay was due last week and she's still too tired to start writing it. When I tell her she might want to think about withdrawing from class instead of failing it, she accuses me of being mean to her. Really interested in hearing from others who can give me a perspective on this. So I'm going to start with the parents here, and then I'll go last on this one. Heather?
I actually have perspective as a parent of a younger child, but I also have perspective with some of my family members, excuse me, who at first, right out of high school, had some difficulty with the self-structure that college required.
And life.
And life, but mainly, college requires a tremendous amount of discipline. My parents, who are educators themselves and just excellent educators, so I know what good teachers look like because my parents showed me, always said that college is about proving you can jump through fancier hoops. And I think that's true. Higher education is just that, a more challenging education. So when you encounter higher education, be it community college, four-year college, two-year degree, whatever you're doing, it really does require that you can structure your time a bit better. And if you're fighting with defense mode, and if you are shutting down and easily overwhelmed, that sort of structure is going to elude you. The problem that I see parents taking is that they are afraid to allow their children to not succeed because there's this stigma attached with the concept of failure. And grades in school reflect that. F is a failure and you don't move forward. I think that equating failure with not moving forward is a terrible, terrible thing that the educational system has done because failure is actually an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
So
failure is when you know where your blind spots are.
Right. So allowing your child to fail, allowing your child to not turn in an essay, allowing your child, if she doesn't want to spend the money for her child to fail, then there is a responsibility agreements are a great way to address some of this. To ask, my father told me when I was going to college, this is a 4-year commitment. Don't do it if you're not prepared to commit to this for 4 years. And it was a really good way to frame that for me because I could I didn't have the part of my brain that dealt with long-term planning. It was developed yet, which doesn't generally happen until the late teens or even early 20s.
25, 23,
By
25.
Especially for people who have issues on the spectrum. it's important to kind of frame for them, this is a long-term commitment, and it does require these milestones. Can you put together a responsibility agreement? Because what they're finding right here is that there's an agreed upon action, and that there's a divergence here, which actually will create a cycle of nagging, because the person who's nagging comes back to the agreed upon action, and the person who's diverging is, for whatever reason, not able to follow through. So getting real and allowing people to fail and asking them to take responsibility for their own actions is a really tough part of parenting. It's hard to watch your kids struggle. It really is.
But the thing I always say is you don't do things whether they're hard or not. You do things whether they work or not.
Right.
Like, and if it works but it's hard, do it. Like, I had to completely rejigger my entire diet recently, like yesterday, recently. And was it hard? Yeah. Did I spend like 6 hours doing it? Yeah. But it's food. What am I going to do? Like, decide, no, I don't want to do that and eat Cheetos all day? I mean, a lot of people do that, but it's like, then do I want to feel crappy all the time? Then why'd I go to the doctor and pay all this money in the first place and spend all this time and learn all these things when I could have just said, I'm going to ignore that?
Making those choices and then being angry that you got the consequences you signed up for is a really good way to prove that you might not be ready to step up. And that's not a judgment. It's just, okay, maybe that's not where you're ready to be yet.
Yeah.
I want to speak to the last sentence here where she said that her daughter is, Carol, you said your daughter thinks you're being mean to her. Mm-hmm. And as a coach, that's right where I go, is toward the emotion. But so that triggers me to think, Carol, time to back up. You're overly committed to this process and overly committed to her going to college, and she's not right there with you. And because we are dealing with a young adult who needs to learn how to make adult decisions as time goes on, backing up what Heather said, it might be time to just let her flounder and
discover who she is and what she wants to do. And even if college is the right for her, I want to actually speak to the beginning part of this, where it says, how do parents of young adults on the spectrum handle seeing your child shun well-meaning advice and guidance and witness their child making bad choices and making situations so much harder for themselves?
That's kind of parenting right there.
I did that, though. I was that kid that was like, no, screw you, I'm going to do it my way. And because I wanted to have the failures in order to learn. It wasn't that I was shouting well-meaning advice, it's that I wanted to go through that on some level to learn. And if you don't let your kid, like, if you don't trust that your kid wants to do it this way because they know what's best and what they need to learn, and you just, basically, the underlying assumption is, unless I step in, they won't be able to do it on their own.
Right.
But the thing is yeah, maybe right now they won't be able to do it on their own, but they're going to learn how to do it on their own only through not being able to do it on their own.
Yeah.
They can't.
If you always are stepping in and like, let me rearrange and let me try and fix and let me try and, it's like, back off.
Yeah. And
let them feel like for me it was like, I was not feeling heard and validated as a human, so I'm like, screw you then. I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say, good or not. You say do this, and then like, but you aren't listening and you aren't willing to hear me, then you're dead to me. And all your advice is dead to me.
That's the thing where you say, how do you handle young adults on the spectrum, seeing them reject well-meaning advice? Well, how's that well-meaning advice coming at them? Is it coming at them as platitudes and lectures? Because even I reject those, and I'm not a young adult anymore. That's a thing. The other thing is that it could be very well that, a year of flipping burgers at McDonald's might be a tremendous, tremendous incentive to do better in college.
And that might be what they need. Like, for me, like, you don't necessarily know, I have to go to college now. It's like, no, they don't. There's nothing, that's not written anywhere. That's not your expectations. My life has been very, very, very non-traditional. People always go, wow, you're 26 and you're the CEO of a company. How'd that happen? I'm like, well, for the past 8 years, I've literally done nothing else.
It's true.
24/7.
Didn't go to college.
No, I went to college.
You didn't finish college, right?
Yeah, well, I have an associate's degree.
Oh.
And you are self-educated at some pretty significant
the
ways.
thing is that when I was in college, I wasn't doing college. I was like I was doing this. I would skip classes to do my own.
You
classes.
were though. You were self-educating.
Yeah, I would skip classes to go to seminars. Let me put it that way.
Well, and look at how far he's gone without a 4-year degree. But yeah, so Carol, I would say, first of all, you're not a bad parent if your child does not decide to go to college.
You're not a bad parent, period.
At all. And I'm just reading, I don't know you, I'm just reading the question, but just take it easy on yourself, take it easy on her. What I would recommend is make sure that you talk to her and come up with an agreement that,
Is this what she wants to do?
Then if not, are you feeling like she needs to be out there? And then it's a job, right?
Or
it's
maybe
teaching these children how
Maybe she can apply for financial aid instead of having mom fit the bill.
Yeah. Right.
The agreement with my parents was, we will pay for you as long as you are going to college and getting these grades, or if you're below a C, you have a very active, aggressive plan with tutors and the whole 9 yards to address this situation. If you're not going to go to college, then we will not pay for you. And so eventually I was like, okay, I'm not going to college anymore, but I'm going to pay for myself. But that was the plan I chose. I was like, fine, you don't want to pay for your fine. I'll figure out how to pay for myself.
And have faith in her,
That's the big thing.
She may be on the spectrum, but she's smart, and she's a young adult. Just like every other young adult, you got to let them fly. Have faith in her.
Yeah.
Talk to her.
In other words, back off.
Frank,
back off.
I would actually, I know you have some thoughts on this. I would like for you to speak on, if you can, parental self-care, because it's hard to watch somebody who's dependent on you struggle.
It is. It is really hard. And I think that, some of it is, giving space for yourself to process what's going on and knowing that you actually are doing the best thing for your child, and that is allowing them to have and own their experience, right? Like good feelings, bad feelings.
Yeah.
What I consider a good decision, what you consider a good decision. Each one of these is a learning opportunity, and it's understanding what you get out of that learning opportunity, I think, is the most important thing. And for parents, it's also taking care of, you can't take care of yourself. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't be there and hold the space for your kid to be able to fail, because you need resiliency, because it hurts. It doesn't feel good. And a lot of times you just have to not show that necessarily with them, but with your partner, it's hard. Being a parent is the hardest job there is.
I often say, if I wanted convenience, I would have gotten a plastic fish. That's not what I chose. I got exactly what I wanted, and I love being a mom.
Yeah. A lot of people say, you create your reality, especially in the metaphysical, self-help, spiritual guru circles. I disagree with that. I think you create your consequences, both good and bad. The actions that you're choosing today will affect you later, even that's an hour or whatever down the road. And so you create your consequences. So what consequences are you going to choose today to help make tomorrow better or worse? During the next question, I'll show you a graph that sort of illustrates this a little bit more.
My mom has an expression, and yes, Mom, I did listen when you said these wonderful platitudes, and now I rely on them heavily, so thank you for that. And for those of you out there, I'm 45, and I'm thanking my mother because of all those little bits of wisdom. She says you make your own luck. Good planning, that's making some pretty good luck. So, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And thanks for that, Mom.
Yes. Any further thoughts, final thoughts? Let's see what the Facebook peoples are saying about this. All right. Caroline says, really great advice given here. Thank you. You are very welcome. Tracy, hi Tracy, says, my 20-year-old has decided not to go to college right now, so has begun looking for a job as doing very little. What do I do? He clearly doesn't want to do a whole lot, as being at home isolated more days is causing him to become more discouraged. I would honestly figure out, he says he doesn't want to do college, but he's still going to live at home. There's a certain thing where you go, these are your choices, these are not your choices. We will continue to support you if you go to school. If you don't want to go to school, you have 6 months to get a job or decide to go back to school. Otherwise, we're just going to kick you out. And that's not being mean, because that's fully within his choice of hey, FYI, hey, we're going to
boundaries.
Boundaries.
Here's the apartment that you can move into. This is a thing. So you make one choice or another. Letting him stay at home and just, play video games and all that stuff isn't really a good option.
Well, there's a middle ground there, too.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think it's okay to ask of your kids is, how can you contribute to this situation?
Yeah.
If you're going to stay at home and you want to drive the family cars, can you wash and detail one of them a month and keep them filled up with gas?
Yeah.
Can you work at home on the yard or on the house for 30 hours a week? You know, it's
Can you support in some way? So I think the big question here is, how do I help my kids become independent? And that's entirely the wrong question. Because if you trace that to its core, you aren't independent. You're dependent on 1,000 different people for the food and the technology and everything else in your life. And you go, okay, but I can be independent. I'm going to live in a farm on an island and be completely off the grid and by myself. Let's take this to its extreme.
Aspie dream,
right? Like alone by myself on a farm, fully self-sufficient. Sort of. You're still relying on nature and the soil and so again, as Heather just said, instead of going, how can I help my kid be independent? How can I help my kid be interdependent? The more interdependent that you become, the better it actually is.
Your quality of life goes up the more community you have.
And that is reliant on interdependence. Like for me, for like 10 years of my life, it was like, oh, you know all the stuff that's wrong with you, like minorly wrong with you, that you shouldn't go to a doctor and gripe about, because if you have a headache that's only a 2 out of 10 on a scale, you don't go to a doctor. You either take some Tylenol or you shut up and deal with it, right? And you realize, no, that you can actually talk about that to people and say, this is an issue, I'd like some help. It's a minor issue. Yes, comparatively in the global scheme of things, there are people that have migraines every single day, but that is not me and that is not my experience right now. But at the same time, I still have a headache. So, like, let's get...
valid experience.
Yeah, that's a valid experience. So let's get that addressed. So, what I'm trying to say is that I realize that the more community and interdependence I have, and the thing with interdependence is that it relies on everybody contributing in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's what to focus on, instead of one person just siphoning off the system. It eventually either the whole system collapses or that person gets kicked out. The thing to rely on that is long-term sustainable growth and no survival anxiety, and the thing we're actually looking for, all of us, is interdependence, is the connection between all of us.
And the science supports this. Actually, doctors are now recommending that even for people to have longer lives, to find a place where you can be around people and actually volunteer and be of some service to your community will actually improve not only the quality of your life, but the length of it.
Well, and kind of even going back to the question is, what can you do, is encourage your son to be of service.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Go out and volunteer, get out in the community, meet people, allow him to have experiences where he can understand what his passions are and what he would like to do. And that volunteering is a great way to do it. And it being a service to others is a great way to be able to experience the world.
And having talked to your son on several occasions, one of those rare situations where I'm like, I have more details and context about this, because I've actually talked to your son on several occasions, I would say that he is extremely motivated. He just might be confused as far as what to do, and it is probably a little bit in defense mode again. So is one of those, like, co-create solutions with him and see if you can help him move forward. Like, be the genie, make his wish comes true. But, like, first, understand what those are and help him make those dreams come true.
I would like to add just one more thing, because that's kind of how I roll. One of the things that we need to remember as we get to a place in our society where our childhood is so extended is that the transition from childhood to college and college to what people would refer to as the real world is now a very difficult transition. It requires a really different mindset for all three of those life areas. And so what will allow your child to make the transition more gracefully is knowing what their strengths are. And that you get from experience, from challenging yourself, from being able to go out and do, not just sitting in a classroom.
Well, and on one of my child's journey, she started school early, and then she got moved ahead when she was in 6th grade, and so she started college at 16 for university. And I think and she's now 20. She's a senior. She's in her last year. She's going to be a teacher, and it's awesome. But she was her choice to move forward in school was her choice. She had to sign up to do the work. This was a lifelong decision that was going to affect her, and it was her choice. I didn't make that choice. Her mom didn't make that. We had our opinions on it, and we talked about it a lot. At the end of the day, that was the choice she'd made, and it changed a lot of things for her, but it also gave her the ability to start to understand how decisions feel inside of ourselves, so that we can start to understand when we feel like we're making the decision that is right for us. Not right for anyone else, but right for us. And being able to have...
That is a lost skill.
It is. And not necessarily caring what other people think about our decisions. It's scary, it's really thing, but if you start to make decisions, you start to understand how they feel and what the ramifications are. You can start to trust your decisions. And that's what I tried to do with my kids, is I try to teach them and give them opportunities to understand how their decisions feel and look at them. And
very well said.
That is the most important thing in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
we're going to take a quick break here, and we will be back to talk about some more awesome stuff. The next question, I'm just going to give you a little preview of the next question here. Jennifer says, if we let our 14-year-old play GTA, that's Grand Theft Auto, and COD, Call of Duty, those are gun-shooty violent games, and join him in these games, does that have an effect on fueling his gun obsession, guaranteeing he will purchase a gun for himself eventually, which is a concern to me? So we'll be talking about violent video games right after this break. See you in a sec. I remember growing up and not really having many friends, wanting friends, but not having many friends simply because I didn't know how to be social with people.
My name is Heather. I'm the COO here at Asperger Experts, and I'm a mom. My son was diagnosed with Asperger's a little more than a year ago, and he's amazing. I'm trying to raise a productive, independent, self-supporting person. I need support to do that. I can't do it by myself.
And here we are. Welcome back. So here is Jennifer, and this is our next question from Jennifer. So Jennifer asks, so if we let our 14-year-old play GTA and Call of Duty 18-plus games and join him in these games, does that have the effect of fueling his gun obsession, guaranteeing he will purchase a gun for himself eventually, which is a concern to me? If our kids are maturity delayed, shouldn't we encourage waiting even beyond 18 for that gun-violent exposure? I love all the bonding over video game stories you're sharing. One of the main things to give you some context is that when people are in defense of it, they often play video games, and one of the things we advocate is playing video games with them as a means to connect with them. Anyways, that's what she's referring to. Mm-hmm. And the stories she's referring to are part of our AE Plus membership. So for those of you in the comments that are saying, I love the sense of community here. Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. Join AE Plus. This happens 24/7. Get on there. Any question you have, there is a great, massive community of people that, like, any problem, just 30 people. We're here for you. Anything you need here. Should let me share you my story. And it's like, wow, I never realized I wasn't so alone. Anyway, I would love all the bonding over video game stories you're sharing. Just I'm still struggling with the idea of games with guns and violence. Husband turns off suffering dog humane society commercials. Daughter leaves the room when we watch the news. You get the weird duality here because yes, violence in video games and media in general is just a why thing. Like it's one of those it's the same thing as like putting food coloring in food that doesn't need it, like putting red food coloring in strawberry jam. It's like, why? 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 Like I literally have no idea why that would be a thing you would ever do. So I get it. It's just like, why? Why not have a game that doesn't involve killing something for once? But on the other hand, this is sort of the culture that we live in. So what I want to speak to is believing in him, is trusting that he knows what's best for him, and that he knows that there's a reason why he's doing this, and that he has judgments that he can use. I would say that the part about doesn't this have an effect of fueling his gun obsession, guaranteeing he will purchase a gun for himself eventually, which is a concern to me? First of all, it doesn't guarantee anything. He is a person who has free will, so we cannot guarantee anything. Just like I can't guarantee anybody watching this is going to stay on the whole time because they have free will, right?
And lives.
And lives. Mm-hmm. Like, no, it doesn't guarantee anything. And second of all, So will that mean he'll purchase a gun for himself eventually? He may still purchase a gun for himself eventually, like some people do, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be an irresponsible gun owner or anything. I think you're taking your anxiety and projecting it way too far. Now, on the other hand, though, and this is the question of the dualities, because there's on the other hand, yes, violent video games are bad, and it still sucks.
They're violent.
But they are a means to connect with him. I mean, what my dad said was that I don't like all those video games with the bullets are shooting past you, so I was like, okay, we can play something else. So we just played Age of Empires instead.
Friendliest game, by the way.
Yeah, yes. It's an amazing game.
Yeah.
Love the soundtrack.
I grew up in a place where guns are really a part of the societal culture, and I really would like to speak to some of this.
Go for it.
I grew up in a place where a lot of people hunt. There are a lot of rural areas around where I grew up, and one of the things that we had was actually a mandatory hunter safety class in high school. And I think that part of the solution for every problem of extremism is education. So if your son is interested in going out and purchasing a gun, I think the first thing that he must do is pass a course. And I'm sure that there are, law enforcement or some other places that will offer that course.
Local gun range.
Yeah.
Local gun ranges. People will teach him how to do it safely. And I have been on the shooting range plinking with shotguns in the past, and honestly, there's rules. There's rules at the gun range. There's rules to demonstrate to other people that your gun is not loaded at certain times. There are ways to make that safe. There really are. Education is really the key to combating it. Just lots of forms of extremism, including a love of guns. Now, as far as violent video games are concerned, I personally believe that can desensitize people to some of the ideas of violence. But one of the things that I find is that if I put that out there and say, well, you're becoming desensitized to violence, I have actually made that happen more than the video game has.
Yeah.
Because I believe that my child will be desensitized. If I say, wow, what do you think about that? That's really violent. How does that make you feel? Then I'm not offering up my perspective, or I am, but I'm owning my perspective. And then I'm asking the child, what do you think? How does that feel to you? And I think allowing them to explore it for themselves is way more important than telling them what to think.
Absolutely. And I want to add that all of the science, like all the good science, yes, you can find all the articles that say that violent video games cause everything you want to prove, but all of the good, peer-reviewed, legitimate science that can be replicated and all that good stuff says that there really isn't a link between violent video games and violent behaviors or actions at all. That's not a thing.
Probably boredom and hopelessness are probably higher correlations. Now, I think that it is possible. You talk about your concern with your son going out and buying a gun. I think it is possible, again, to go back to a responsibility agreement and boundaries kind of situation where you can say, if there is a legitimate danger, say there's a person in the house that's being treated for depression, I think it's legitimate to say there are no guns allowed in this house while anybody's being treated for depression. I think that's a legitimate boundary.
Or if there's a suicidal person in the house, don't have a gun in the house. We're not going to
have that. So
or under the very least, if you do decide to have a gun in the house with a suicidal person, make sure it is extremely locked up and hidden and not accessible to them in any manner.
And there's a middle ground to this too. You can have the firing pin in somebody else's house so that it has to be intentional to use. You can keep the ammunition somewhere else. Yes, you might have accessibility to a piece of metal, but at some point a hammer will work just as well, right? I think that boundaries and just really looking inside of yourself and finding, is my fear that my son will go and become a homicidal maniac? Because I must tell you that if that is your fear, access to the gun is not where you should start being worried. Access to the gun is really kind of a follow-up. The issue is, what is driving my child?
And what is my fear if my fear is my child is going to be a homicidal maniac? What is that based off of? Is that just, I'm uncomfortable and I think this may be a thing that could happen as a possibility? Right. It's like, technically, yeah, that is a possible reality, but is it likely? Probably not.
It is difficult to paint human beings with a broad brush. So if that is your inclination, you might be doing your son a disservice. Your son might be able to handle things better than you think.
Yeah.
I want to just touch on something that Heather said, and this is just an idea. But if he's really excited about guns and really interested in guns, and the video game thing kind of rattles the family. What about going in and doing some gun safety classes as a team?
Yeah.
That's a great bonding exercise. It teaches everyone about guns, and it's something that you'll enjoy doing.
And
he'll enjoy doing with you. As
You can
well.
go down to a local gun dealer, licensed gun dealer, and most of the time they're probably willing to have conversations and talk about it and helping get educated. Educating yourself on something or allowing your kids to educate themselves on something, I really don't see much downside to that.
Yeah, I mean,
really,
the worst is they know how to use a gun safely in case they need to, and there's less, like, anytime you demystify something, there's less fear and power around it.
Yeah, it's not.
And it may not even be that interested once he actually gets to it. May be the electronics and the music and everything that he's getting really excited about.
The thought of what using a real gun versus the actuality are two completely related. They're different realities completely, and
that's usually the case for really anything.
And I think that there's going to be a certain percentage of kids out there that are like, oh, this is going to be really great, and then you take them to a place where they can learn how to use one and fire it responsibly and understand the amount of power and scariness that thing can be. For some people, they're not. It comes back to let them have the experience.
Yeah.
He's going to own that. He's going to relate to it how he relates to it, but he has that experience. It's not going to be wondering, because wondering is anything we want it to be.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just to finish that thought up, we advocate for doing video games with your kids, but it's really just something that they're interested in to create that bond, and so that might be an alternative to playing these video games.
And it might be that you want to play other video games with him. You mentioned that the dad just turns off the "Me in the Arms of an Angel."
I do
the
too.
sad puppy,
too.
and it's like, why do you do this? And like most people turn that off, I bet, because it's too much. It's like, look at the sad puppy. Don't you want to give it money? And you're just like,
yes, but no.
So if people can't cope with it, then don't force them to do something that they can't cope with.
Yeah, I mean, if your kid, after playing video games, is shaking and doing this because they've gone into a trauma response, playing that video game is probably not the best thing. But talking through that with them about how they feel and what they're experiencing and doing that,
to help them make a better choice rather than making a choice for them.
Or just to understand.
Right. And that's, my youngest daughter, Sarah, she's 8, and we went to fair. We do a lot of stuff at fair. And she really wanted to go on these rides, and the scary rides.
Oh, those rides!
Yeah, and Sarah,
and the
up and down,
and the up and down, and Sarah normally doesn't have. She's just kind of notoriously doesn't have a lot of fear, and she's really willing to do everything. And so we went on this one ride where they take you all the way up, and then
they drop you.
They drop you like a free for all, and it was it freaked me out, and I, was like, oh my, and I got off, and she was literally just shaking there, and like going through a trauma response because it was really that overwhelming to her, and it was great that she was going through that trauma response. I really wanted it, great in that she was processing the trauma and not storing it inside.
Releasing it.
Releasing the trauma.
Yeah. So, you said one word that I really want to speak to. And that was power. And I think that one of the things that we have to be careful of with all our kids, but especially kids on the spectrum, kids don't have a lot of power in their lives. They don't get to decide pretty much when they eat. They don't get to decide when they sleep or if they go to school. They don't get to decide if they can drive or where. They don't have a lot of power. And sometimes embracing things like guns and violent video games is actually an expression of wanting to reach out and grab some power somewhere. And I don't think we can discount that, because to completely disenfranchise them from any of their personal power is really to do them a disservice and to reinforce.
And then they'll get the power some other way, like refusing to do anything and staying in their room and becoming the immovable object.
Well, that becomes the game of I'm bigger. I'm bigger, so you have to do what I say. And then when they get bigger, what do you do?
Oops.
So that is an important thing to recognize, is that a fascination with guns is oftentimes a fascination with a very powerful tool. And And that is
because it's a compensation because they don't feel like they have any other power, so they're going to be obsessed about the thing that is powerful.
Separate your own feelings about guns from your child's wanting to have a powerful tool. That is an important distinction, and allowing that to be about them. I like drill presses myself and compound miter saws, so it's real. You can laugh. I have a beautiful saw.
One of these days, I dream about just going out to the Mojave Desert with like a ton of C4 and like an old car.
That's a beautiful dream.
And then just like.
I know somebody who could help you with that dream.
I know several people. This is going to happen.
Yes,
but
we'll invite him.
Yeah, it's going to be magical. But the thing is that like that could be scary to a lot of people, right? But at the same time, it's just like we have a fascination with things that just have a lot of power.
We do.
And if you do it safely, then there's really nothing wrong with going out to the Mojave Desert and blowing up a car with C4 as long as you do it safely.
Scientific method.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think will happen?
Like go stand a mile away, do it well and do it right.
Binoculars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have like the GoPros and stuff set up all around it, like Mythbusters does.
Exactly. So
love that show.
So guns.
Yeah.
Have we talked about that now?
Yeah. So let's see what the Facebook peoples are saying, and then we'll take our final question here. So, let's see. Somebody's saying you just pegged the NRA crowd. My son's 16, almost 17. He hates what I say. He has Asperger's. He's very secretive. Does not want to matter if he's not told it. Yeah, honestly, it doesn't matter if he says Asperger's or not. I'm going to sort of. That's not really outside. It's outside the scope of this thing. Let's see.
But everybody is quirky.
Yeah, everyone's quirky, My 12-year-old daughter, who I'm beginning to suspect has Asperger's, is starving herself. That is her taking power, I think.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Guaranteed.
That is the one thing we have the most power over, is what food we consume. Yep. Absolutely.
And with Asperger's, a lot of times they really just want to feel in control on top of being a teenager, wanting to feel in control.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Because being a teenager is a thing, too.
Yeah.
And if her safety's in danger, that's where the mom gets to step in. And
Or are people talking about the gun conversation?
There was somebody saying that as if I could play video games with my son, maybe Pong.
Maybe Pong. I know that I try to play things like Little Big Planet with my son, and our running joke is, how many creative ways can I die? Because I'm really good at dying, and it's what we laugh about the most, is that I get to cheer him on while he finishes, and then every time we get a chance for me to respawn, I die pretty quickly, but I try to at least make it entertaining. And it's fun, and he indulges me, and we have a good time.
And you're creating a bond.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line of it.
Well, I have an amazing son. So.
You do have an amazing
cool. As if some parents say, no, I don't have an amazing son. Although the sad part is they do. But,
yeah, no, they all do. They all do, but I really do.
So,
Yeah.
Well, I have 3.
Yeah. I do.
daughters.
That's all right.
So, 5?
5.
Okay, yeah.
Total.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Give you a preview of the next question, and we're going to take a quick break here. And I highly suggest you all join AE+, AspergerExperts.com/support. Yvette says, my 11-year-old daughter is now completely shut down and refuses help, direction, advice, therapy, or instruction for anything, even opening a package. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. See you in just a sec.
For a long time now, I've been sitting on the sidelines just trying to stay out of it, and just watched with thorough enjoyment at Danny's responses and the window into his life, and all of your questions and your incredible answers. And lately I've been chiming in, and it's really fun to be able to help parents who ask a question about experience with IEPs or experience with homework. It's extremely rewarding to be able to give back and to help the community. And you know what? I'm still learning to this day from all the other parents who share experiences. And it's actually pretty cool to realize that I'm, to this day, not alone in this world, and how common many of the Asperger characteristics are from individual to individual. I didn't know how difficult it was for those with Asperger's to try different foods. I didn't know that there was sensory overload. I didn't know how common it was for people like Danny to walk into a store like Kmart with fluorescent lights, and how common it was to have a meltdown because of the overwhelm of the lighting. It was a very, very lonely experience raising a kid with Asperger's. And fortunately, today there are many, many more resources available. And that certainly would have helped us raising our son, Danny. You are not alone in raising your child with Asperger's. There are many resources available in this world, and many parents have been through very similar situations. There's no reason you need to be alone in this world when you raise your child with Asperger's.
And welcome back. So, big shout out to Katie, who said, "I love you guys, and I can see my son totally blowing up something safely in the desert someday." So, he's welcome to join us.
Seriously.
Also, shout out to Allison, who just joined AE+.
Thank you.
Welcome to the family.
Welcome.
Yay. Okay, let's see if anybody else has joined or said anything else here. Let's see. Okay. No, okay, so we're going to take the third question here that we got from Yvette. And Yvette says, "My 11-year-old daughter is now completely shut down and refuses help, direction, advice, therapy, or instruction for anything, even opening a package. Currently, no school friends, academic work, going to bed, waking up, getting her required immunization, going to dentist, therapy, or doctor. She still constantly argues, complains, and debates. I diligently work on getting her out of defense mode. At even mention of asking her to perform any task, she feels pressured and either shuts down, covers head, ignores, or goes to the bathroom with her tablet when it's available, or melts down, yells, throws herself on the floor, cries, whines, swears, and sometimes throws things. So in other words, life is great. Our therapist said she needs to inpatient or residential, and we're currently reluctant, ready to do it if we found in most places. Won't take kids under 12, and the ones that do have a long waiting list. That won't let her bring her comfort toy, which seemed crazy since she was diagnosed with attachment issues and high anxiety. And how can a kid with trust issues and anxiety get better when she's taken away from her mom? We have an appointment tomorrow with a doctor who will probably prescribe, she's never been on any meds, and they make a treatment recommendation. Have any of you had these shut down and refuse help issues? If so, what has made a difference? What treatments have worked? Help." That's a mouthful right there.
I really want to speak to this.
You go ahead and you speak to that then.
Thank you. When my son was in preschool, I would go in and they would look at me and say, "He spent a lot of time on the floor today," and we called it turtling. He would curl up on the floor. And I said, "Yeah, he does that. When he's done, he comes out." We called it having a trauma, just to have a name for it. But really, he was soothing. And I told them to leave him alone. I said, if I walked into a room and there were a couple of adults just taking a break, I'd be like, "Oh, you need a moment. Very good." But I think that I would really appreciate the heads up that somebody needed a moment. I think that one of the things that we're seeing here is just some sincere overstimulation. And one of the things this person mentions
is, how do I get them out of defense mode?
Well, no, it's more than that. Could you scoot that a little closer, please? One of the things this person mentions is, everything they are doing. And it's therapy, it's doctor, it's dentist, it's immunizations, it's
looking at residential,
argue and complain about. What are you allowing? Because right now what you're locked into, it's now become a control struggle about you're either going to do this or. And what's the or? If you keep searching for an or, it's going to be awful. So let her do it. Let her scream for a while. That doesn't mean you have to sit in the room and listen. Does she
needs
have
time to process.
Does she have a place to melt down?
It seems like she's smothered and has no opportunity to be with it, and there is zero space held for her.
Admittedly, we're only getting a very complicated situation in a snippet, and I get that. It's really hard to communicate just how big the situation is when you're in the middle of it in just a little email. I really do understand that, and I don't want to dismiss your experience. I don't. But it does look like you just trying intervention after intervention after intervention, and back off and let it suck for her for a while. Because I can't imagine anybody being comfortable except that it would be familiar to her to be melting down. And it sounds like she just can't right now. So Sometimes when people need that kind of a break, they shut down and they withdraw. If that's where she's going, then stop trying to get her to do something else and see where she is. And just give her just a little bit of space so that she can come out and tell you and listen. Because the way you have phrased this question is we're doing and we're doing and we're doing, and all she does is melt down. So it sounds like you need to stop doing. That's what I've got.
Yeah.
Well, and going into, later on in the conversation of, kids need comfort. Mm-hmm. Our kids need us. They are attached to us as parents. All of my kids, they co-slept with us. We were co-parents, whatever really that means is, I want to be around my kid wants to be around me. I'm going to let that happen.
The attachment parenting philosophy,
yeah. And that's really the philosophy I've had with a lot of my kids. But it comes down to comfort is, why would I take something that's comfortable away from my kid? Why? Seems kind of mean. So, no, I wouldn't put her in any place, that would do that.
Yeah, I would back off and give her space. So,
give her an opportunity to allow herself to be her and let her own her own experience and her journey.
Yeah.
We have something here at Asperger Experts. We call it defense mode. If you are a member, you hear about it
all the time. If you aren't a member, you've probably heard about it.
Yeah, but I think that's what's going on with her. She's so maxed out and overstimulated that she just can't handle anything.
She just can't.
She can't. So we would highly recommend letting her get out of that before we start moving her forward.
And I was going to say is maybe there's, we only have a certain amount of capacity per day. And if that gets filled up with with our basic needs not getting met, then there's no room for anything else. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe look at her schedule or what's going on in her life where she's feeling so overwhelmed on a continuous basis.
Yeah.
Maybe start to look at what are those things that are causing some of the anxiety or stresses that are underneath there, and do little things to maybe try to adjust those things so that she's able to have more resiliency, so that when she gets into these hyper states that she's able to come back down, come back in, and then when she recycles, she doesn't recycle back up or back down, but kind of more stabilizes.
Yeah.
And
you talk about going into the bathroom with the tablet. Now, tablets are a really great way to kind of get out of your head for a little while when your head is a tough place to be in. Bathrooms are actually usually very non-stimulating places. They don't have a whole lot of visual artwork. They might have something, but they're pretty peaceful places because when you take a tub bath, you don't want everything to be high fusion energy. But so it could be that having what we would refer to as a nope zone, when you nope out, nope, can't take it. Having a place with no visual stimulus, having a place that is quiet, having a place a safe place with stuffed animals that are important, or a tablet or something, and being able to go and spend some time there. Because what you're seeing is not willfulness, it is neurological overstimulation.
And there's a huge difference. I want to show you guys a graph really quickly. So Jesse, if you could put that graph up. So what you're seeing here is we have results on the vertical axis, and that is a high amount of result would be more of the thing you want. Lower down the graph, you have less of the thing you want. Whether that it would be more getting out in the world versus very shut down, or taking more showers versus taking less showers, or more homework versus less homework, whatever it is, high is getting the thing you want. And then on the horizontal axis, you have the number of interactions. So how many times does it take you to get the thing, right? So what happens is if you look at the red line, that's sort of what you're on. You keep trying and trying and trying and trying, and it once worked, but now it didn't work because the more you try, the worse it gets. It starts off amazing, but the more you try, the worse it gets. So the red line's sort of a trap in that way. The blue line, on the other hand, is an exponential growth curve. So on the red line, all the work is backloaded, right? You don't see it until it's too late, and then you're in this state and it's just work for very little result because you're trying to do the same thing. The good news is the blue line is your salvation. It's front-loaded work, so you will not see results for like a month or two until you start really doing it, but that means giving her space, backing off, letting it happen. The core fundamental assumption of the red line is that I need to do something, I need to add something to the system because it won't work on its own, whatever that may be. That my kid won't take a shower on their own naturally, I need to force them to. My daughter is totally shut down, I need to pry her open and help her feel more safe. And help her get, and help her get her to do things. The core assumption of the blue line is they can do it on their own. They just need some help, guidance, and facilitation. And what you notice is that if you look at the sort of the end of the graph there, the red line is just in the gutter. You're trying to do things so many times and you're getting no results and you're exhausted. Meanwhile, it goes down in flames, right? It's not a sustainable system. The blue line, on the other hand, you get very, very max results then, and it doesn't require too much further interaction because you've done it. It's there.
It's maintenance at that
It's
point.
funny. Okay, so you can take the graph off there. But that's the idea is switch. Let it happen. Let it be. She needs a lot of time to calm down. She is physiologically so overstimulated, it would be like, it is literally exactly the same thing as I just got chased by a lion and then mauled by a bear 5 minutes ago, and now you want me to go out and mow the lawn? Like,
nope.
I need some time.
Right.
Like, dear Lord, let me have time to process that and heal and be with that and not have a giant gash on my face. And it is the same literally neurologically when you look at and measure cortisol levels and everything else. There is no cut on her face, but it is biologically identical.
And doctors can help with that, especially in the short term. They can, there's some natural remedies, like you've talked a lot about the botflower.
Yeah, like rescue remedy.
Really help rescue remedy, and some others. There are natural products naturally occurring in the human body, like melatonin and L-theanine, that can promote relaxation and rest. And then there's also a higher level of intervention, which is medication, and sometimes that's warranted, and we're not going to judge.
Yeah. I'm taking meds.
If somebody needs meds, try them for a short time, see if they work, and then see if the person can function without them or not. Really, there is no one way to do it, is the point, is you have to work in your situation, in your home, with your child to figure out what is right for your family. So you're parenting with her and not to her or at her.
Mm-hmm. Let's say that again.
You're parenting You're
parenting with her, not to her or at her.
Thank you, yeah.
It warrants a third time, honestly. You're parenting with her instead of to her or at her.
Mm-hmm. If you think of maybe our roles in life as parents are facilitators, right? If you think of that is really our role. And our job is to facilitate our kids' in happiness, enjoyment, fears, whatever. It's not our job to do it for them. It's let's teach them how to make those decisions and understand what those feel like, so that when they need to make lots of important decisions, they already know what that feels like and they can understand for themselves what is true for them.
So the last thing I wanted to mention about this was I've been working every day to get her out of defense mode. And when we were talking about this earlier off camera, you had something interesting to say about getting her out of defense mode.
Well, that's control.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get somebody out of defense mode.
You invite them out.
You help them to feel safe enough to get themselves out. If you're trying to get them out, that's control. That's a red line action, which will actually cause them to get more into defense mode.
Usually, pretty much, if it's based in control, you're going to get a red line go down in flames. Control is just control is a short-term solution for a long-term loss.
Yeah. So, with that being said, we're going to take our last commercial break here, and then we will be right back to answer a few Facebook questions in the remaining 7 minutes that we got.
My name is Lynn. I've been a part of the Asperger Experts Parent Support Group for the last year. I'm a happy customer of many wonderful AE videos and online courses. I just always look forward to the next course offering because it always, I consider it adding to my toolbox of skills and knowledge. The parent support group is really an amazing group of parents. Anybody can ask a question, and you're almost guaranteed a very quick response from caring and supportive parents. The ideas and the suggestions that come out of that group are really just high quality. And there's a number of parents too that also have been diagnosed with Asperger's, and they have a very unique way of looking at things that help us to understand our children better and why some approaches might work better than others. So again, it's just an amazing group of parents. I've gotten a lot of just positive energy from being part of that parent support group. And a couple of things that if you ask me what the most important thing is for parents to know, it would be really understanding defense mode and the sensory funnel. Over and over again, I just come back to the defense mode and sensory funnel videos and really having a good understanding of that. A lot of parents will say, oh, it looks like my child is being lazy. I see them sitting at the computer a lot. But defense mode can really masquerade as other behaviors. So a lot of times, if parents don't really understand what's going on inside of their children, it might just look like laziness or manipulative behavior, when in reality, your son or daughter might be experiencing a lot of anxiety or sensory overload or overwhelm. So once you really understand the sensory funnel and defense mode, then you can really truly begin to connect with your child and to also help them to help themselves and to help them move their lives forward and to really start living their lives. The other important thing that I have found is really framing your family culture as one of a team and making sure that your son or daughter feels like they're part of the team and existing within the family culture and not outside of the family culture. I think there's lots of things that parents can do to improve the family culture, such as establishing fun traditions that the child enjoys, playing games with the children, watching their favorite TV shows. If they like cooking, then you can cook together. If they like taking the dog for a walk, you can go on dog walks. But it's really just finding those things that your child enjoys and then making them part of your family traditions. And I think that's something that brings out the best in everybody in the family. And absolutely, I would recommend AE, the course offerings, and the parent support group. I just appreciate all that you've done, and I appreciate all of the parents as well. Thank you.
So welcome back. So wanted to address two comments that came up over the break. We'll start with Allison, who says, "Oh, please let me stop trying to get her out of defense mode and learn how to invite her out." Yes. So grateful to be learning. Just need to hope for her to get to not be so sad mad. Heather, you just said something amazing about that. Can you just repeat?
Why do you want her to not have feelings? What's wrong with her being sad? Or, I mean, they're her feelings. Why would you? I mean, I understand that most of us don't feel like they're pleasant, but we want them to be real, not pleasant all the time.
Yeah.
So why don't you validate the sad and mad and see where that's at instead of trying to make her not what she is? That's very frustrating.
Maybe ask her why.
Yeah.
Or ask her what her favorite color is, or something.
We do have to cut this short because Facebook's literally going to cut us off in a minute. So,
okay.
Troy says, should we sit down as parents and try to explain to our 13-year-old son with high-functioning autism his prognosis? He's been politely asked to leave senior high school because he didn't fit into. He has been asked to leave. And honestly, it sounds like it isn't the right school for him. And if he wants to learn about his diagnosis, tell him. So with that. Thank you all so much for coming. We will be back next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for more of this, and talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.